Well, hello there, friends. Today I'm on the banks of the Waccamaw River, and I'm in beautiful Conway, South Carolina, and I will be sharing an article with you today from HBR's collection on mindfulness. Here is the book. The article today is entitled Emotional Agility: how effective leaders manage their thoughts and feelings. It is written by Susan David and Christina Congleton, and as always, I will share a little bit about the authors first, and then we will go through the article together. Okay. Susan David is the CEO of Evidence-Based Psychology, a co-founder of the Institute of Coaching, and an instructor in psychology at Harvard University. Christina Congleton is a leadership and change consultant at Axon Leadership and has researched stress and the brain at Massachusetts General Hospital and the University of Denver. She holds a master's in human development and psychology from Harvard University. This is reprinted from Harvard Business Review, November 2013. So, just over 10 years ago. Anyway, let's begin. Emotional agility: how effective leaders manage their thoughts and feelings. 16,000. That's how many words we speak on average each day. So imagine how many unspoken ones course through our minds. Most of them are not facts, but evaluations and judgments intertwined with emotions. Some positive and helpful, like, I've worked hard and can ace this presentation. This issue is worth speaking up about. The new VP seems approachable. And others negative. He's purposely ignoring me. I'm going to make a fool of myself. I'm a fake. Constantly. The prevailing wisdom says that difficult thoughts and feelings have no place at the office. Executives, and particularly leaders, should be either stoic or cheerful. They must project confidence and damp down any negatively bubbling up inside of them. But that goes against basic biology. All healthy humans have an inner stream of thoughts and feelings that include criticism, doubt, and fear. That's just our minds doing the job they were designed to do, trying to anticipate and solve problems and avoid potential pitfalls. In our people strategy consulting practice, advising companies around the world, we see leaders stumble, not because they have undesirable thoughts and feelings, that's inevitable, but because they get hooked by them like fish caught on a line. And this happens in one of two ways. They buy into the thoughts, treating them like facts, and avoid situations that evoke them. Or, usually at the behest of their supporters, they challenge the existence of the thoughts and try to rationalize them away, and perhaps force themselves into similar situations, even when those go against their core values and goals. In either case, they are paying too much attention to their internal chatter and allowing it to sap important cognitive resources that could be put to better use. Now, the authors say this is a common problem, often perpetuated by popular self-management strategies. We regularly see executives with recurring emotional challenges at work, anxiety about priority, jealousy of others, success, fear, rejection, distress over perceived slights, who have devised techniques to fix them, and fix them with positive affirmation, prioritized to-do lists, immersion in certain tasks. But when we ask how long the challenges have persisted, the answer might be 10 years, 20 years, since childhood. Clearly, those techniques don't work. In fact, ample research shows that attempting to minimize or ignore thoughts and emotions serves only to amplify them. In a famous study led by the late Daniel Wagner, a Harvard professor, participants were told to avoid thinking about white bears had trouble doing so. Later, when the ban was lifted, they thought about white bears much more than the control group ever did. Anyone who has dreamed of chocolate cake and French fries while following a strict diet understands this phenomenon. Effective leaders don't buy into or try to suppress their inner experiences. Instead, they approach them in a mindful, values-driven and productive way, developing what we call emotional agility. In our complex, fast-changing knowledge economy, this ability to manage one's thoughts and feelings is essential to business success. Numerous studies from the University of London, Professor Frank Bond and others, show that emotional agility can help people alleviate stress, reduce errors, become more innovative, and improve job performance. Now, we've worked with leaders in various industries to build this critical skill. And here we offer 4 practices, adapted from Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, ACT, originally developed by the University of Nevada psychologist Stephen C. Hayes, that are designed to help you do the same. Recognize your patterns, label your thoughts and emotions, accept them, and act on your values. Those are the 4, and we will touch on them after a short description of fish on a line. Fish on a line. Let's start with 2 case studies. Cynthia is a senior corporate lawyer with 2 young children. She used to feel intense guilt about missed opportunities, both at the office, where her peers worked 80 hours a week while she worked 50, and at home, where she was often too distracted or tired to fully engage with her husband and children. One nagging voice in her head told her she'd have to be a better employee or risk career failure, and another told her to be a better mother or risk neglecting her family. Cynthia wished that at least one of these 2 voices would shut up, but neither would. And in response, she failed to put up her hand for exciting new prospects at the office and compulsively checked messages on her phone during family dinners. Now, Jeffrey, a rising star executive at a leading consumer goods company, had a different problem. Intelligent, talented, and ambitious, he was often angry at bosses who disregarded his views, subordinates who did not follow orders, or colleagues who didn't pull their weight. He had already lost his temper several times at work and had been warned to get it under control. But when he tried, he felt that he was shutting off a core part of his personality, and he became even angrier and more upset. These smart, successful leaders were hooked by their negative thoughts and emotions. Cynthia was absorbed by guilt, and Jeffrey was exploding with anger. Cynthia told the voices to go away, and Jeffrey bottled his frustration. Both were trying to avoid the discomfort that they felt. They were being controlled by their inner experience, attempting to control it or switching between the 2. from fish on the line to getting unhooked. Fortunately, both Cynthia and Jeffrey realized that they couldn't go on, at least not successfully and happily. Without more effective inner strategies, we coached them to adopt the 4 practices. And I'll remind you again what those 4 practices are. Number 1, recognize your patterns. Number 2, label your thoughts and emotions. Number 3, accept them. And number 4, act on your values. So recognizing your patterns. The first step in developing emotional agility is to notice when you've been hooked by your thoughts and feelings. And that's hard to do, but there are certain telltale signs. One is that your thinking becomes rigid and repetitive. For example, Cynthia began to see that her self-recriminations played like a broken record, repeating the same messages over and over again. Another is that the story your mind is telling seems old, like a rerun of some past experience. Jeffrey noticed that his attitude towards certain colleagues, such as, "He's incompetent, there's no way I'm letting anyone speak to me like that," was quite familiar. In fact, he had experienced something similar in his previous job, and in the one before that. The source of trouble was not just Jeffrey's environment, but his own patterns of thought and feeling. You have to realize that you're stuck before you can initiate change. Number 2, label your thoughts and emotions. When you're hooked, the attention you give your thoughts and feelings crowds your mind. There's no room to examine them. One strategy that may help you consider your situation more objectively is the simple act of labeling. Just as you call a spade, call a thought, and an emotion, an emotion. Labeling allows you to see your thoughts and feelings for what they are, transient sources of data that may or may not prove helpful. Humans are psychologically able to take this helicopter view of private experiences, and mounting scientific evidence shows that simple, straightforward mindfulness practice like this not only improves behavior and well-being, but also promotes beneficial biological changes in the brain and at the cellular level. As Cynthia started to slow down, label her thoughts, the criticisms that had once pressed her like dense fog became more like clouds passing through a blue sky. And number 3, accept them. The opposite of control is acceptance. Not acting on every thought or resigning yourself to negativity, but responding to your ideas and emotions with an open attitude, paying attention to them and letting yourself experience them. Take 10 deep breaths and notice what's happening in the moment. This can bring relief, but it won't necessarily make you feel good. In fact, you may realize just how upset you really are. The important thing is to show yourself and others some compassion and examine the reality of the situation. What's going on, both internally and externally? When Jeffrey acknowledged and made room for his feelings of frustration and anger, rather than rejecting them, quashing them, or taking them out on others, he began to notice their energetic quality. They were a signal that something important was at stake and that he needed to take productive action. So instead of yelling at people, he could make a clear request of a colleague or move swiftly on a pressing issue. The more Jeffrey accepted his anger and brought his curiosity to it, the more he seemed to support, the more it seemed to support rather than undermine his leadership. Number 4, act on your values. When you unhook yourself from your difficult thoughts and emotions, you expand your choices. You can decide to act in a way that aligns with your values. We encourage leaders to focus on the concept of workability. Is your response going to serve you and your organization in the long term as well as the short term? Will it help you steer others in a direction that furthers your collective purpose? Are you taking a step towards being the leader you want to be and living the life that you want to live? The mind's thought stream flows endlessly, and emotions change like the weather, but values can be called on at any time in any situation. When Cynthia considered her values, she recognized how deeply committed she was to both her family and her work. She loved being with her children, but she also cared passionately about the pursuit of justice. Unhooked from her distracting and discouraging feelings of guilt, she resolved to be guided by her principles. She recognized how important it was to get home for dinner with her family every evening and to resist work interruptions during that time. But she also undertook to make a number of important business trips, some of which coincided with school events that she would have preferred to attend. Confident that her values, not solely her emotions, were guiding her, Cynthia finally found peace and fulfillment. It's impossible to block out difficult thoughts and emotions. Effective leaders are mindful of their inner experience, but not caught in them. They know how to free up their internal resources and commit to actions that align with their values. Developing emotional agility is no quick fix. Even those who, like Cynthia and Jeffrey, regularly practice the steps we've outlined here, will often find themselves hooked. But over time, leaders who become increasingly adept at it are the ones most likely to thrive. That's the article today. Thank you.